Hello, hello, this is Tom Sapp, Tom Sapp Photography, tomsapp.com if you want to check me out. Now today we're going to talk about how to take a great graduation picture. Now that can mean a couple things. You can do graduation pictures in the studio. So if you are doing a studio situation, you want to basically get the detail in the face and make it look real nice. You can do something dramatic where you have the person with the hat off, maybe holding it in front of them, looking down, and then put nice side lighting coming in. That would be really dramatic, a good different kind of look, keepsake photo for the wall instead of the traditional looking at the camera headshot kind of deal that you get in high school. But if you're doing stuff actually at the graduation, it comes into the camera plays a huge role. Okay, your camera that you're going to have, if you have just a regular consumer grade camera and you're trying to get a photo from say 200 yards away while you're in the back bleachers watching your daughter up on stage, you're not going to be able to do a very good job without getting every single thing in the whole room and doing more of a landscape of what's going on or an architecture shot. So if you want to get that shot that you want where it's the actual shaking of the hand, the walking off the stage, the throwing up of the hat, if you want to do that, the long lens is going to be the best thing to do. Now I can't stress enough, this is the standard lens. You can look online. Most photographers have like a 70 or an 80 to 200 or something in that range that is on the camera 90% of the time for most of the things that I do. And I've talked to other photographers, equine photographers, pet photographers. We all use the 70 to the 80 to 200 with a Nikon. Canon has its version, but it's in the same range. So that's what you're going to want to do. You can even get a teleconverter if you know you're going to be really far back and the stage is just maybe like 300 or 400 yards away. At that point, you can get a teleconverter, and that's simply just another little piece that goes on. It looks like a little lens, and it connects the lens to the camera and multiplies the optics inside the lens ×2 or ×3 or whatever the conversion that you have that you've purchased. But that's going to be the way to go, and the ISO on the camera is crucial. Like for instance, my D3, I don't have to worry about getting motion blur anymore because I can shoot at 3200 and get photos that blow up 8x10, 16x20 and don't show any grain. It's unbelievable, and I can shoot natural light. So if I were doing graduation pictures with my D3, I would throw on the 70 to 200 that you see here. That's this one. It's got vibration reduction, so I can hold it very, very still, and it actually holds it, it continues the lens, so it holds that image in there while I'm moving the camera. If I do happen to shake, I'll still get a very, very solid photograph. It'll give me basically an extra stop of light if you want to look at it that way. And then I'll set the ISO very high so that I can get the shutter speed equal to the lens or greater. So if I'm shooting a 200mm lens, then I would want to have my shutter speed at least 200 to make sure that I didn't get any camera shake. If I'm shooting 400mm lens, I would need to have it at least 400, and that's what a full frame lens or full frame camera like the D3 is here. If you're using the other lenses or the other cameras, like say the D70 or like some of the Canon cameras like the Rebels, they have the smaller chips in them. So the lens, if you put a 200mm on, it would actually be a 300mm because you would basically take the millimeter of the lens and then you'd cut it in half, and then so 200, it would be 100 would be half, and then you add it to the end, that would be 300, and that's the conversion for most of those smaller chips that you get in the older digital cameras. So that's one way to tell how to get your shutter speed at the right open long enough so that you can get that solid capture. And what I mean by solid capture is just simply a good exposure at a setting that's going to give you handheld a real crisp photograph without any blur in it, without getting that shutter open to the point where it's going to create some motion blur in there. And that's the most important thing when you're doing graduation photos of actual people on stage. Now, if you have a poorly lit stage, and I've hit this a few times, where you have lights where the lighting on the stage is just, you know, maybe spotlighted onto the ground, onto the floor of the stage in front of the subjects. It's not even on the subjects. At that point, the only thing you can do is really expose and crop up so that you don't get that hot spot on the floor and you only get the light that's falling on the people, or you can use flash. I personally don't enjoy using flash in that situation because if the person blinks or something, I notice that, then I have to take another photograph and it turns into the movie awards. You know, it's like you see flash, flash, flash. And I don't like to be a spectacle in a situation like that because the primary is this person graduating, and that's what you're celebrating. So in that situation, I would choose to do natural light, use the long lens, set the high ISO, and make sure that my color balance, my white balance, is set to whatever lighting that they have. And a color meter comes into play very, very handy if you're doing something like that. Otherwise, you can use Kelvin temperatures on your camera and actually dial it in. If the fluorescent feature, most of the cameras have fluorescent on them, little symbol under the WB, that's white balance. And you can set it to the fluorescent, but more times than not, that's not going to be very accurate, because all the fluorescent lights that are out there in the world, after a month or two, they actually die out. They lose their temperature there. They actually get cooler. So you're going to get a different kind of tone than the standard setting that a lot of the camera companies lead you to believe. But now you have the Kelvin temperatures that you can simply go, okay, most of the fluorescent lights are going to be around 5100 Kelvin, so you can simply set it at that as a starting point. And if it's a little blue, you can move it towards the higher numbers, say 60 Kelvin, 60,000 Kelvin, 70. And if it's a little more orange, you can move down because you want to put more blue in it to balance out that skin tone. But that's the easiest way I can tell you to do graduation pictures. Other than that, get them off the stage, get them having fun, get them throwing hats, giving hugs, shaking, all that good stuff, and just enjoy it. So thank you very much. This is Tom Sapp, How to Take Graduation Photos. Thank you very much.